I applied to 12 schools, which included like state schools, Ivies, um, art schools, all that. Yeah, and like in high school, I was mainly involved with like art, speech and debate, yearbook, volunteering, all that good stuff. Yeah. Okay, so I don't really know who you are in the audience or how like far along you are in the college application process, but just as like some overview, like a summary of like everything that you would kind of need to get started. So if you're a junior and you're about to be a senior, this is like kind of the stuff that like you should know, but if you don't, it's okay. But basically, every college application process starts on like Common App, which is what you probably heard of before. It's where you can add all your colleges and is where you submit your essays and like the famous personal statement, which is like this 650 word essay about yourself. It can be about basically whatever you want, but it's like an essay that you send to most of the schools that you apply for. And it should be like something about yourself. And maybe it could be like a journey you went through, like one of the activities that you do, like, yeah. And then if you're interested in like Texas schools and UCs, which is like California schools, there are separate applications for that. Y'all might know already, but yeah, so there's like a UC application, which is four separate essays. I didn't really apply to UCs, but I was going to, so I researched a lot about it. But they don't have like this personal statement, which is like 650 words. Instead, they have a list of eight prompts, of which you choose four to answer. And that like kind of takes the place of um, your Common App essay. And that's just like one application, and it kind of applies to all of the UCs, so like UCLA, UC Berkeley, etc. And yeah, and so Apply Texas is the like website you use for Texas schools, except for like a lot of the times now, like schools like UT, A&M, they're all on Common App, so it might just be easier to have everything on Common App instead. So Apply Texas is not like as needed or as necessary. So it might just be good to have it all in Common App. And just like the last thing is just like College Board test scores. I know AP scores recently came out. I know like people have been taking the SAT, ACTs, and it's good to check now like which schools are test optional and to see if you like kind of fall inside their range a little. And even if you don't, I think that's fine. But if you do want to submit your scores, make sure that you're sending them in at least 2 to 3 weeks before your application deadline. I've had people tell me for like UT schools, like they didn't submit their test scores on time. They submitted like a few days before they turned in their application, which is like the deadline or whatever, and it wasn't accepted. So make sure you turn in your test scores early, especially if you're like confident in them, just turn it in. But yeah, those are like just some basics, that you should probably know. Yeah. Okay. So, more on to like your specific essays and like application in general. So yeah, you'll have a lot of different essays that you'll be writing depending on how many schools you're going to be applying for. But obviously, the most important is your personal statement. Um, when I was writing mine, it took me a really long time. I started last summer in like June, and then I didn't finish until October. So it definitely took a lot of like rewriting a lot of drafts, but basically like you just want to choose a topic that is it doesn't have to necessarily be unique, but it should tell something to like the admissions officer about yourself, like a quality or like a journey or a challenge that you overcame. Personally, for me, I wanted to like, I talked about art in my personal statement, but I wanted to show like the colleges that I was like determined or like I like persevered through like challenges in my life, through like art. And I think it worked well because it wasn't like it wasn't like apply to whatever major I was applying for. Because for some schools, I applied like business, and art obviously doesn't really have anything to do with it. I think it was more because I heavily like emphasized on a specific quality, or like a personality, like character trait to the college that they like, had better feelings towards, or it was more successful in that way. So when you're writing your personal statement, I definitely recommend like sitting down and choosing like specific things that you want to highlight about yourself and how best to show that to the colleges, if that makes sense. Um, and also just like when you're writing supplementals, like whether it's like a community essay or like a why college, why major essay, you definitely want to like not be repeating yourself. Um, and just like try to like this sounds pretty obvious, but like try to make sure you're contributing something new about yourself in every essay that you write. Whether that's just like an activity that you do, or maybe just like another hobby or like another character trait about yourself. I think those are what allow colleges to see like, how like a well-rounded person that you are. Yeah. And if you're like me, I don't really know if there are many like artists out there, but definitely submit a portfolio if you can. I think it just helps like add another level of like dimension to your college application. And they don't even have to be if you're applying to art school. Like I submitted portfolios to almost every single school that I applied to that accepted them. And I think it just kind of like, displays your potential. Um, and yeah, so definitely submit an art portfolio if you can. Um, yeah, and then just like back to like your college applications and essays, I think the best thing to do is kind of like forming a theme around your application. So if you just like take a look at all the activities that you do, um, and like most of the time there's at least like one single thread that kind of connects them all. For me, it was kind of like I wanted to benefit or impact my community through like all the stuff that I did. So it was like yearbook, speech and debate, art. And I kind of just like made that the theme of my college application. So in all the supplementals and all the essays I wrote, I just kind of tied it back to this like common theme. Um, and yeah. Okay. So in the Common App or like profile, they only offer like 10 activities and 5 honors. So like obviously, I don't know if you have 10 honors or 10 activities and 5 honors, but definitely like make sure they're quality ones. Obviously, yes, less is more. Like you probably want to fill out all 10, or if you feel like you don't have enough because you don't fill out all 10, I think that's totally fine if you don't. As long as like the activities that you are in, you're making like a tangible impact onto your like on like your community or whatever organization you're part of, I think that's a lot better than having like 10 meaningless activities that you just joined senior year to put on your profile or your resume. And same with like awards, honestly, like a lot of people I've talked to, they don't have like, or they're worried that they don't have enough awards or whatever. But like, if you have like one or two, or even if you don't really have any, um, you can just put like AP Scholar with distinction. That's also fine. But if you do have awards, it's good to like frame them in a way. I think I'll talk about this later on in the slides, but it's just about how you like phrase them. Um, Same with your activities. You want to phrase them in a way that shows impact. So say like you're part of like a volunteering club that's like helped a certain amount of people for a project, you definitely want to emphasize like, oh, like in your description, say donated like 300 cans of food for blank amount of people, or like raised $10,000 for this. Like definitely make sure you're including like numbers, statistics to back up your activities. Um, and basically all that you have to do to be good on the activities and awards section. Yeah, and so specifically for like the why college, why major essays, I know you'll get a lot of them because like UT asks for them, a lot of Ivies ask for them. But I basically kind of had the same like formula for all my like why college, why major essays. I would basically start off with like a small anecdote of like say I was applying for a business major, which is what I did for UT. I started off with like an anecdote about like, oh, I've always been interested like through art or through the volunteering organizations that I'm part of. I'm always interested in like the business aspect of it. And if it's like a why major essay, then I would go from there, the anecdote, into why like specifically I want to study business, which is like make an impact in my community. And then why like this college is such a good fit for me, or why this major in this specific college is such a good fit. And for like why college essays, I would throw in like specific organizations I wanted to join, specific classes, like things I wanted to do while at the college, because that's kind of how you'll like apply yourself to that college, and it'll allow them to see how you will like take their resources and make something more out of it. So for each essay, I would say like I would go search up on the college's like organization list. Every college normally has one. They have like student organizations page where they'll just list out every single club that they have. Um, and you can just like click on each club and you can just like find out more about it, or they'll have like websites and stuff. So I would just search these up, which for whichever one seemed interesting to me. And I would just say like, oh, like, this club where you do this, like I can envision myself doing this and like contributing to the project, or like contributing to conversation within these groups of people. And I think that was like kind of like my foolproof way of just like writing the why college and why major essay. Um, Honestly, I think these essays are super like formulaic. So if you want to be like unique, you can, but like, you know, there's also just like kind of a formula to writing these. Um, and yeah, and like look at past essays for reference. When I first started out writing, I read so many essays. I read probably like 100 personal statements, like just online. I would search up like top 50 best Common App essays, and there's a bunch that pop up. And I would just read these and kind of like analyze how they like would write and how they would like put across their point. Um, and there's like College Essay Guy, which is this guy who makes a bunch of posts about like each college and each essays, and he gives examples for each essays. So that's like a good place or a good resource to look at as well. Um, but yeah, just basically like it's good to, look at the past essays and see what worked and what didn't. Yeah. Yeah, and obviously, like the first draft that you write of your essay is not going to be the best one, and it's not going to be perfect. So just prepare yourself to write several drafts. Um, I think for my personal statement, I wrote like 15 different versions. Obviously, like you probably don't need as many versions, but just, prepare yourself mentally. Um, and yeah, this is okay. This next one applies to if you're thinking about earlying anywhere, or like EDing and stuff. I personally REA'd Stanford and I got deferred. But yeah, but basically after you get deferred, normally you have either a deferral application, or if they don't have that, which most colleges do now, you can write a letter of continued interest. For Stanford, they just had a deferral application, which was like 3 or 4 more essays I had to write, which I did. And it worked out, so it was fine. But if you do have to write a letter of continued interest, there's a lot of like videos out there or like templates of like things you can follow, but really it's just when you're writing this email to the admissions officer and you're kind of just like reiterating why you still want to go to this school even if you get deferred or waitlisted, why the school fits you, and just like things that you've done since submitting your application. So this like the letter of continued interest is normally sent like February-ish, January, February. So it's like been a few months since you submitted that like application, obviously. So you kind of want to just like update them on your life and like any like new accomplishments that you've gotten. This may seem like kind of like far-fetched or like far away because it's still in a few months, but it definitely like comes fast. So it might be really easy after you finish applying to college to just be like, yeah, I'm done. I'm not gonna do anything anymore. Like, and it's valid. Like, I didn't really want to do anything, but if you are applying early and you do to get deferred, you just kind of have to like prepare yourself to still continue at least some of the activities that you do, or just like um yeah, or like continue like entering competitions or whatever. Because it's they always want to see that you're continuing to do something that's like not just for college applications, if you know what I mean. Um, but yeah, hopefully, you don't get deferred and you just get in early. But I don't know. Sometimes that'll happen, and if it does, it's okay. It'll all work out for like totally. Um, and yeah, and so back to activities. This is like what I was talking about earlier. It's just kind of about how you phrase stuff. Like they obviously want to see the impact that you've made. Um, and you only get like I think 100 characters or 150 characters in each description um for each activity or honors and stuff. So you definitely have to be very like concise and brief and like get to the point. So like none of my descriptions were like full sentences. They were all like very like bulleted points. Um, so like say for example, I like for yearbook, since I did yearbook and it's like off the top of my mind, my like description would be um like edited, designed, blank amount of pages, like 500 pages, figured like thought of theme, managed like 100K of senior awards. And then by then, honestly, that's like already like 50, 60 characters. I don't really know. But yeah, you just have to be like very short, very concise and to the point. And obviously include numbers if you can. It's just like the easiest way to show impact. Um, and yeah, if you have any more questions, like feel free to ask me about it. But yeah.
Okay, thank you, Alina. Thank you, Alina. Then we'll move on to the Q&A for the last part of this event. If you guys have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box or the chat box below, and we'll try to get through all of them.
Okay. Should I just start answering them?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. What am I planning on majoring in? So at Harvard, the good thing about like Ivies and like the top schools is that you don't really have to choose a major until your sophomore year. So you apply like undecided basically. But I kind of know that I'm going to be majoring in economics and maybe minoring in CS, like computer science. So yeah, that's my plan right now. Um, how important are letters of recommendation? They're pretty important. I got a letter of recommendation from my junior year math teacher and my junior year English teacher. And I I was able to read my English teacher's rec letter, and like it was pretty good. I had no complaints about it, but yeah, I do think they're pretty important. Like definitely find a teacher that knows you well to write them, obviously, but yeah. I don't know. I think personally to me, like essays are more important, but it just depends on who you ask, really. How many extracurriculars are you in? Um, well, I was really mainly in like three, which was like art, yearbook, and debate. And then I was in like two clubs, which is like National English Honor Society and um honestly, I think I was mainly just in one club, which was that. And then like I did like a volunteering organization. I did fill out all 10 spots, but like they were more like half of them, or not half of them, like three of them were like summer programs that I did, which are also pretty important. If y'all have any questions on that. And yeah, so in high school though, I was really mainly only in like four or five extracurriculars. And did I only apply to Ivies? No, I applied to a lot, like a very broad range, I'd say. I applied to like UT and I applied to Stanford, MIT, Harvard, Yale, Penn, um, Carnegie Mellon, Williams, and just like yeah, two art schools. So I did not only apply to Ivies. I actually really only applied to three, but yeah. Did I try to get close to specific teachers for recommendations? Um, kind of. I mean, I I wasn't really worried about them like freshman or sophomore year because I knew like they most likely weren't going to be writing my rec letters, but junior year, um, I did kind of make an effort. Like I made an effort to like contribute in class, like raise my hand, like talk to the teachers, like show them that I'm actually like putting in the work. Um, so I guess yeah, I did try to get close to the teachers because like I wanted to make sure like the letters that they wrote about me were like more than just surface level. So more like, personalized. Like I didn't want to just have like a basic rec letter, if you know what I mean. Um, oh, and what were the summer programs? So the summer before my sophomore year, I attended this like month-long art program at some like university in Texas. And then the summer before junior year and the summer before senior year, I attended like two different computer science camps because for a really long time I wanted to do computer science. So um if y'all are girls, I attended like women in STEM camps. So it was like girls who code and code with Clossie. And last summer I also attended this UT computer science academy. It was just like 1 week and they just kind of teach you like some code to like make a project and stuff. And that was another one that I did. Um yeah, most of the or all of the programs I went to were free. If you're thinking about doing like those pre-college programs, I know they're a lot of money. I think honestly, like if you really want to go, you should, but they don't really matter. Or they like I feel like colleges don't really take them that seriously. So it's good to apply for the programs that are like actually geared towards like helping you. You know what I mean? They're like normally free. I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah. Do you think testing optional lessens your chances? I don't think it does. I mean, I feel like it's been a long time since schools went test optional. It just kind of depends on like how well you did on your tests. Because I think, um, like yeah, if you think it's like really below like their target range of a college, then I think it's totally fine if you don't submit it. Um, but I don't think they lessen your chances at all, honestly. Like, I don't really know if I've heard of anyone like not getting into college because they didn't submit their test scores. Maybe for like UT or like A&M who are very like stats based, but other than that, I don't really think so. So I think testing optional is fine. What other resources did I use for essays or for application help? Um, I I didn't have a college counselor because my sister, who's older than me, she already like she's gone through the process before, so I kind of just asked her for help. Um, but I know a lot of my friends did have college counselors, which really helped them like stay on task and just like give them ideas and stuff. If like for free like resources, um, like I used collegeessayguy.com. I can put it in the chat if y'all want. And like College Vine, um, honestly just like TikToks as well. Like you can search up like um I don't really remember his name, but there's always this one guy who's making videos about like what you should do to like stand out and stuff. And I would just use these websites to like read essays and see what other people did before me. But yeah, let me know if you want me to put it in the chat because I totally can. How did I know for sure where I wanted to apply to? Did I use certain apps to help the process? Yeah, so I had like this list of schools I wanted to apply to like in the summer, but like it changed so much throughout the year. But basically, when I was choosing to if I wanted to apply to a school or not, I would just basically like see like if I really wanted to go there or not. I know that sounds really stupid, but it's more just about like if they have the good major that you want and just like say like, oh, if I did get in, would it really be worth it for me to go? Because um I know like financial like factors also apply to a lot of the time. So I was just like, oh, like would I rather go somewhere out of state and pay that like out of state tuition versus just like if I stayed in state, for like the same major or whatever. But I did know I wanted to apply to at least like some of the top schools. Just like I don't know, just like to see and just for fun, but definitely have a safety. Um, it can just be like an in-state school and yeah, and I'd recommend honestly having maybe just like one or two safeties and that's all you need. Like maybe some targets, like three max targets, three, four targets, and then the rest should all just be like reaches. And honestly, yeah, because I feel like personally to me, it's not worth applying to so many safeties if they're really all just the same. And yeah, I don't know. For me, my safeties were like A&M, Texas A&M, and UT, but more so Texas A&M because I was like auto admit into it, but I would have just like gone there if nothing else worked out. But yeah. What are my thoughts on starting nonprofits in high school? I think that's definitely a really good thing to do. I think you want to start it or you want to make sure you're being like actually impactful with it because I know a lot of people who like start nonprofits for name only and like they don't really do anything with it. And because so many students now are doing like nonprofits, like to admission officers, they won't really think it's impressive unless you actually do something with it. So like say you're starting like a club or a nonprofit to help the environment, if you're able to like um, you know, create or execute like actual projects to like help clean up areas or like raise money, that's definitely a lot more impressive than if you just say like, oh, I started this nonprofit with like five people in it, but we don't really do anything. So yeah, just make sure you're doing something with the nonprofit. Yeah. What schools did I get into? Okay, so I was very lucky to get into most of the colleges I applied to. So I got into Stanford, MIT, Harvard, CMU, Williams, UT, A&M, art schools. Yeah, I was rejected from Yale and then waitlisted at Penn. But yeah, other than that, I was lucky enough to get into everywhere else. But yeah. Also, like if you have any like specific school questions, like feel free to contact me as well or ask questions. Are internships important either in the field of your major or in a position of leadership? Um, Personally, I didn't have any internships. Um, I think it definitely doesn't hurt if you do or if you have research. I think I applied, well, since I applied like for business for some or like CS for others, um, yeah, this is like a side note. I applied for like a different major at each school because I didn't really know what I wanted to study. But for schools that are like business or like CS, like I didn't have any internships, but I think if you don't have internships, then it's good to have research. And if you don't have research, it's good to have summer programs or like summer camps that you go to. So like it's good to have like at least something that you're doing either throughout the school year or during your summer. And so you're not just spending your summers like at home and not really doing anything. Um and same for like positions of leadership. Like I did have like leadership positions in like a lot of my extracurriculars. I think it's definitely good and shows the colleges that you're like actively involved and that you're, you know, ahead of like an organization and that involves like certain skills that you learn along the way. So if you're thinking about like applying to a certain leadership position, I definitely say you should. Um, yeah, it never hurts, honestly. And yeah, and it's just another thing of like, if you are a leader, you should be doing something like proactive and like making an impact. Um, yeah. Should applications try to draft essay formats early on? How important is it to draft essays specifically for each school? Um, Yeah, so I'd recommend starting your college apps in the summer before your senior year. Just because like once senior year starts, it just gets really busy and like I don't know, you just like don't really want to be doing essays while doing like school and all your homework and stuff. So definitely try to at least draft like your personal statement or have it mostly done by the time senior year starts. Um, And like a kind of annoying thing is though, is like most of the supplemental essay prompts, they don't come out until August 1st. So you could be spending like, say for this summer, you could be spending the past two months just like writing a bunch of like drafts for certain prompts, but then like the real prompts come out and then you don't really use them. But it doesn't hurt to like start thinking about like ideas or like what you would write if you did get a certain prompt. Um, so yeah, definitely try to start them early. You'll thank yourself later. And how important is to draft your essay specifically for each school? Yeah, so honestly, like you can reuse a lot of essays, but um their prompts are all slightly different, which is really annoying, but you just have to make sure each essay that you have for each prompt actually answers that question. And personally, I had a lot of issues with this because I was lazy and I would just want to use one essay I've already written and just like copy and paste it directly into like for another school. But most of the time, while you can use like like some parts of the essay, you're still going to have to be writing new parts to answer that specific prompt. Um, so yeah, it is, I would say it is pretty important to just make sure your essays are specifically geared towards each school. And just make sure you're actually answering the prompt because, you know. How did I format my essays like the basic structure? Um, I mean, they all kind of differed a little, but like I talked about before, like with the why college and why major essays, I always had like a little anecdote about like me, and then maybe like I would bring in some of the activities I did to kind of like back up that anecdote, and then talk about like, oh, why this specific thing at this college is like fits with my application or my like me in general. Um, I don't really think they're really is like a specific format to like every single essay out there. Um, but as long as you're just like, you know, answering the prompt. But yeah, I think it's always good to make sure you have like a purpose or like I don't really know how to describe this, but you want to make sure that every paragraph or every sentence that you're saying is adding something to your application and not like just adding words. I know that sounds like it sounds really hard to do, and it kind of is, but they're like these prompts are so short. They're like 200 words, 300 words that like you don't have a lot of space to say everything that you need to do. So you just want to be like concise and to the point, and then just like show like why you're passionate about something or why the school fits you. That was kind of a bad explanation, but yeah. Is it better to be well-rounded or to focus on one particular area? Um, I think it's I don't know. I think personally for me, like my application was kind of both because I did have like an emphasis on art. Like especially like towards like the Ivies and like Stanford and MIT. I like submitted my art portfolio and like I would talk about like art, but I would also bring in like all the other stuff that I did. So like computer science, right? And it's kind of different. So I think you want to have like at least one area where you're good at, like where you're successful, but you don't want to just like solely focus on that so much that you give up all the other activities that you're doing. So it's good to have like different interests and like be proactive in these different interests, but it's also good to be like really good at an area, which I don't know, that's kind of hard to do, but yeah. So I'd say like well-rounded or one particular area is totally fine, but I feel like it's even better if you're both. So I guess well-rounded. Um, what are the recommended extracurriculars for business majors? Um, it all like there's a lot out there, but I think definitely like speech and debate is pretty good. There's a lot of business clubs out there, so like FBLA, I think um Future Business Leaders of America. I didn't really join any business extracurriculars, honestly, but I know like a lot of my friends do. And there's like such things as Business Professionals of America. Um, I don't know if DECA is one. That might be, I think DECA might be one. But yeah, there's a lot. Like if you're like searching for things to do, it's good to reach out to like your school counselor and see like one, if your school offers like business classes, and two, a lot of the times there are also like clubs that students make. Like for example, at my high school, there was like an investment banking club. Um, yeah, there's like other business clubs, but yeah. Um, what do you think is something that most people get wrong about applying to colleges? Ooh. Um, I think it's that like I don't really know. Um, I think maybe one thing is that like people think they have to be like super crazy, like having a crazy, insane application to be able to get into a good school. Like I don't personally, I don't think you need to start like five different nonprofits or like find the cure to cancer or, like obviously there's going to be people that do that and like obviously they'll get in, but you can be like a pretty okay, like average or slightly above average applicant, and you can still get into really good schools. It's really just all about how you like frame yourself as a person to these colleges or to your admissions officer. Like as long as you show them that like you're really passionate about something and you can bring this passion or you can contribute to like a college, they're like you still have like a very high chance. So yeah. because personally, like this time last year, I was looking at my own application and I was like, wow, like I don't think I've really done anything impressive that like warrants me getting into like any good schools. But it's really just at the end of the day, like how you write your essays, like your overall theme and just like personality that you craft through these essays and just like how you portray that to the college. So, yeah, have a good personality. What essay topics do I think are overused and might warn people to stay away from? Yeah, so I think at least for personal statements, obviously there's like a lot of overused ones, like, like the sports injury, the immigration one, which sounds terrible, but like a lot of people write about that. Um, Maybe like moving schools. Um, yeah. But honestly, like even if you're like thinking about using one of these topics, if you're able to make it unique in a certain way, um, then it could work as well. So like even if you really, really want to talk about like a sports injury, right? Like it really impacted you and you just like a really big part of your life, you can definitely still talk about it. Just like make it like unique, which is also kind of hard to do, but anything is possible. But yeah. Um, is it better to claim a major or leave it undecided for Ivies? Um, it kind of depends on each specific school, but like a lot of schools still have you choose in Common App like specific areas of interest. So for Stanford's say I know it's not an Ivy, but it's like kind of equivalent. For Stanford, they asked me to choose three areas of interest. So I chose like art, computer science, and design. And you just basically go off that. Or like say for like Harvard, um, they also ask you just choose like interests, I think. And so I chose like art, economics, CS. But I know for like schools like Penn, they ask you to apply to a specific school. So like say you're interested in business at Penn, then you're applying to Wharton. And they'll have like a specific essay for that program. So it just kind of depends on what you see in Common App. Like so each Ivy is sort of different, but it'll be very clearly stated. Um, but yeah, so to answer your question, I think you should definitely choose an area of interest. Like they do have a decision for like undecided, or like not sure, but I think it's good to have at least somewhat of a direction of where you want to be in the college. So yeah. Do I have any advice on art supplementals? Um, I mean, when you're making like an art portfolio, you want to include obviously like your best pieces as well as um like progress pieces, like of how you made a certain like artwork. Um, I can only speak for like art, like fine arts, visual arts. So I don't really know anything about like dance or whatever, but for like visual arts, you want to have a portfolio that shows like good pieces, like sketches, so like your process while making the piece, like figure drawings, like observational pieces, and you want to make sure you have like a description for each of them because a lot of schools when you're submitting portfolios, you'll have to submit like a description for each piece. So it's good to just have that on like a Google Doc. Um yeah, like I definitely think it adds um a lot more to your application to like for any college. So definitely if you can submit a portfolio, you should. Um But yeah, just like when you're writing descriptions as well, you just want to like tell like the story behind it. Um, Kind of just like the meaning, like what made you want to make the piece. And that's it. Like the descriptions are normally pretty short as well. So yeah.
We can probably give out like 2 more minutes for any remaining questions, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And if y'all have any further questions, feel free to contact me personally. I can give y'all my Instagram. Or yeah, honestly, like just feel free to contact me.
Okay, so I think that's it. Aaron, would you like to finish this up?
Yeah, sure. So now quickly before we end, if you want to be notified for future events like these, please follow our Instagram, Educators for Impact. Once again, if you're interested in joining our team, you can learn how to join by visiting our website under the Join Us page or by scanning the QR code. We also post recordings of past events on our website and YouTube channel.
So I would like to thank you all for coming out and supporting us. I would like to give a special thanks to our wonderful speaker, Alina, and have a great rest of your day and hope to see you in future events. Yeah.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.